Life is Strange is a game made by the indie studio DONTNOD, and has been well regarded as not only one of the best choice games of all time, but also one of the best games for mental health awareness. It's also seemed to garner its own small community that praises the game itself. I have no idea why this game gets the praise it does, but that's life for you, I guess. So whatever boat you're in, let me tell you what I'm going to be judging this game on. Consistency, contradictions, contrivances, plot holes, conveniences, game design, gameplay, characters and/or character arcs, and last but certainly not least, dialogue. I'm going to prove that this game isn't as good as you thought, or if you hate it, why this game sucks even more. Understand? Good. Then let's begin. The game begins with our protagonist Max Caulfield waking up in the middle of a storm. Did you seriously just fucking fall asleep during the storm? Okay, whatever. Anyways, apparently we can't escape from the mountain because there's a huge log in the way. Why can't you just climb over the log and run down the hill? Well, that part's beyond me. Plot convenience, I guess. Then, when we make it to the top while going at a snail's fucking pace, apparently our character is suicidal too. Fun. She gets toppled by a building because a boat smashed into a lighthouse just at the same time we were there. How convenient. But don't worry guys, it was all a premonition. Also, quick criticism, Mr. Jefferson notices when Max takes a selfie, but not when we're sleeping through his class. We then endure the worst dialogue I've ever heard in a game.
Now you're totally stuck in the retro zone. Sad face.
And then we leave to go to the bathroom. We fuck around and take a photo of a butterfly, and then we see this girl named Chloe and a guy named Nate enter into the bathroom to sell drugs. Shit goes wrong and Chloe gets shot on school grounds. I don't know if you guys know this, but bullets are fucking loud. Also, who brings a gun to school and carries it in their pocket? Okay, ignoring that fact, I guess, we now all of a sudden have time travel powers. I'm sorry, what? How did these powers come into fruition? And how the fuck did we get them? Can you at least establish how we got these powers? Usually, how people get superpowers is something happens to them and then they get superpowers. Peter Parker became Spider-Man from a spider bite, Clark Kent became Superman because he's from an alien planet, and so on and so forth. But it's never explained here. So far I'm having a very hard time getting invested in this story, and we're only 10 minutes into the game. Anyway, we wake up from class and already have our first inconsistency with the time travel powers, and that is how the fuck were we able to time travel back 10 minutes ago, and now we can only time travel from 1 minute ago. What are the rules to this power? Please establish them. She then heads back to the bathroom and retraces her steps for some reason. Hey Max, how about you don't do that and instead wait near the door or a visible area where Chloe and Nate can see you, so you can stop future Chloe from getting killed? But no, that would be too smart for this game. Instead, Max pushes a fire alarm and somehow Chloe is able to escape. Like how? Nate still has the gun and he can shoot you at any moment. He's not fucking paralyzed by kicking him in the balls. The game also makes another set of rules specifically saying that you are not affected by the rewind, and neither are the objects you have on your person. Cool, now that we've established those rules, it better remain consistent. We then have our first proper choice of the game, which is you can either expose Nathan for having a gun or not. And can you guess how this choice affects the story? It doesn't. The scene plays out the same no matter what option you pick. We go outside and fuck around with a few people, and god damn, listen to that beautiful voice acting.
Hey, Hayden.
There she is, the retro selfie master.
That's me, all right. You look relaxed as usual, Hayden.
It's a skill one cultivates at Blackwell, especially when one represents the Vortex Club.
The voice actors sound like they don't give a shit most of the time. I don't know if it was on the director or not deciding to reshoot another take, or the voice actor was really that incompetent, but I'm gonna blame it on the director this time. We then try to head to our dorm when all of a sudden we are stopped by Victoria, who is Queen Bitch and won't let us pass. Hey Max, can I tell you a little secret? You can fucking get past them. All you have to do is step around them. There's a huge fucking space right there. But no, what happens next is somehow even stupider. Max then has the brilliant idea to come up with this convoluted ass plan to rig a paint bucket to fall on Victoria, But no, it doesn't end there. We then use sprinklers to get Victoria to stand up, and then conveniently she stands in the exact position needed in order to get paint all over her. When you rigged the paint bucket, why didn't it fall while it was being carried or when it was being hung up there? Instead it fell conveniently the same time Victoria was near. Also, do you guys remember when I said items that you have on your person will not be affected during rewind? Well, the game said that, but you know what I mean. Well, that's a straight up lie, because if you take a photo of Victoria in her soaked state, and then rewind time and instead make the other choice, the photo all of a sudden disappears. Something else you'll notice is that everything is so much more complicated than things actually have to be, and padded more than an A cup on school picture day. For example, in order to get a flash drive with movies on it, Max has to go to Dana's room to get it, but she can't because Dana's friend allegedly sent a sext to Dana's boyfriend or whatever, so you have to break into another dorm to prove her friend is innocent, which is a complete invasion of privacy, I might add. Then finally get into Dana's room and retrieve the flash drive. Is your game this uninteresting and that this is all you do for fun in this game? Do you really have nothing more interesting to do in this game? We then cut to David practically bullying Kate. And the reason I bring this up is because you can either make a choice to take her photo or just not interfere. The outcome of this choice only has the most minor difference, and therefore doesn't justify being there. Max gives Warren the movie booty, and they get harassed by Nathan. Chloe comes out of nowhere to save the day, and Max hops in Chloe's truck and leaves Warren there to get beaten up. What a cunt. We then arrive at Chloe's room, and while I didn't mention this earlier, I will now. Walking around and or interacting with the environment doesn't feel like it adds anything to the world around you. Compare this to Telltale's The Walking Dead, where the objects you interact with are related in some way to the story, and give you useful information regarding the world behind it. But Max is just pointing out shit to the viewer that we've already had established to us when we inspect the item. Remember how I said there's a lot of instances where instead of having common sense to progress the story, but you do the exact opposite and do the most convoluted shit just to progress the story? Yeah, well, this is one of them. Max needs to retrieve some keys, and instead of reaching her arm out and grabbing the keys like any sane person would, she has the bright idea to put an envelope under it so it catches. Are you aware that you guys are supporting the dumbest main character of all time? We get back, then Chloe sees the picture of the butterfly you took, and somehow assumes that was when the fire alarm got turned on, even though the picture could have been taken days before that. And how does she even know that this is the school bathroom? It could be any random bathroom. So how the fuck are you so sure, Chloe? Then David barges into Chloe's room. You have the choice to either admit that the weed is yours or Chloe's. The choice does not matter, nor does it change the outcome of the story in any way, shape, or form. Max and Chloe then go up to the lighthouse, and they recap the episode. While they talk about Rachel, Max has a premonition and wakes up from it, and Max tells Chloe that she has time travel powers. Chloe doesn't believe Max, and Max doesn't do jack shit to prove it. You can literally teleport, Max. Just do it. It's fucking easy. The episode then ends with nothing of substance except for the false promise of a hollow ending that is to come. So then episode 2 starts, and the first 10 to 20 minutes are literally filler of just Max showering, getting dressed, watering her plants, and doing the most menial shit. Max then talks to Kate for a couple minutes. I was actually invested when Kate was talking about her trauma until she says, "How do I get a viral video taken down?" She also asked Max if she should go to the police even though she has no evidence of this happening, so no, don't go to the police. No matter what choice you make, it doesn't really affect the outcome of the story overall, so who cares? This part of the game only serves to waste your time in order to meet its status quota of fulfilling the runtime. We then come back to our dorm, and it turns out that someone wrote on the wall, "Nobody messes with me, bitch," in blood. Yes, it's blood because it turns a different color in the next episode. Max should really call the police or alert school faculty, but she doesn't. Some people make excuses for Max, saying she's just a teenager, but this is literally common sense right here, and she doesn't do it. Another thing with the dialogue is that 90% of the dialogue is literally just full of meaningless fluff, and 10% of it actually matters. Most of the dialogue is recapping what's happened so far, cringy dialogue that leads to nothing, pop culture references, and etc. If most of your dialogue includes nothing of substance, then why bother to include it, if it just serves to waste your time and hold nothing of value? Max then heads to the restaurant and meets Chloe. Chloe wants proof of her powers, which this scene literally doesn't need to exist because she should have done it last episode by teleporting. But even so, the way that they do this is the most convoluted way of doing it ever. The game makes you guess Chloe's personal belongings, guess wrong, and you start all over again. Then you have to guess not only her belongings, but what happens in the diner, so fuck my life, this scene could never happen. If Max just teleported in front of Chloe beforehand, the scene had literally no purpose of being here except to waste your time. We then almost leave the diner until we get a phone call from Kate. We can either answer the call or go with Chloe. Why can't we do both? Why can't Max just answer the call and go with Chloe? The call isn't even that long, it's like 20 seconds of her time, but Chloe gets all pissy about it. I'm so fucking sorry you can't be the center of attention the whole time, Chloe, but I've got shit in my life to do. God, go fuck yourself, Chloe, you worthless, whiny cunt. We then head to the junkyard where we have to find 5 bottles for Chloe, which, 1, how do you know there's 5 unbroken bottles, and 2, why can't you help out as well, you lazy fuck? This leads to the most padded out section ever where we search around for 15 to 30 minutes looking for fucking bottles. One of the bottles is stuck on a ledge, and instead of catching it when it falls, you do more convoluted shit to get it. The gameplay in this game is non-existent. Either you can walk around and interact with meaningless items that add nothing to the world, choose meaningless choices, or solve dumb puzzles. Which makes me why this had to be a game, since there's no gameplay here. There's no substance to it, only the idea of gameplay that never got past the alpha stage. The gameplay only exists to serve a purpose of tricking the audience that this is actually a video game, and not some low-quality dogshit movie. We then teach Chloe how to aim the gun, which is directly ripped off from Telltale's The Walking Dead. Only where in The Walking Dead, it led to character growth in the story, and this scene makes Max and Chloe look like fucking tools. Also, if you aim wrong, Chloe shoots herself, and Max monotonely says, "Stupid gun. Jesus Christ, can I have my own gun to shoot myself with?" We then pass out and get woken up by Frank wanting money from Chloe, because she owes him, and when she tries to shoot him, this happens.
Please, step back.
You're kidding. Put that down.
God, forgive me.
How? I've been counting and there should be 2 bullets left in the chamber, but whatever, consistency doesn't exist, I guess. After the conversation, they then walk on the train tracks and just lie there talking. Max blacks out again and wakes up to find out that Chloe got her foot stuck. How? Well, the game gives a very simple answer to that. Nah, I'm just fucking with you. It never gives you an answer to how it happened. Also, this is Chloe's shoe that's stuck, not her foot, so just take off your shoe and leave, moron. This leads to another convoluted section of Max having to get Chloe 3. I don't know how I'm supposed to care for these characters if they act like mental idiots. They never use time travel in any interesting way, they just use it for the most menial shit that doesn't matter. Like, you have superpowers and you're using it to shoot guns in a fucking junkyard, Jesus Christ. Kate then attempts suicide and uh-oh, did you guys hear that? It sounds like a new power that has come along without being established to the audience. So in order to save Kate, we have this ability where we're able to stop time. This power was never established before and is never used again. You see what I mean when I say Max just does random shit whenever it's convenient for the story? This is literally not the rules you set up. You just told me that Max can only rewind time. What are the limits to her powers? Because she seems to be extremely overpowered. We then get to the top of the roof where we need to stop Kate from killing herself, and conveniently her rewind powers stop working when we get up to the roof. That sure is convenient. Also, depending on your choices in this game can lead to some very disjointed and awkward dialogue. It leads to there being no tension because of how shitty the voice acting is.
Oh, Max, I know you want to help me. I love that you stepped up to David, but it doesn't matter now. Nothing matters.
It helped by erasing all that crap people wrote on your room slate.
I'm glad to hear you worry about me. That makes me feel better.
Of course. Like I said this morning, I think Nathan is involved. I just need time to prove it. And I have a way with time.
You sound so persuasive, Max. If only...
Kate, I believe you. Will you believe me? Please, you don't have to do this.
Also, you could be nice to her throughout the choice you make to try and get her to calm down, but if you accidentally make the wrong choice, she's just like, haha, fuck you, and dies. Also, choosing to save Kate or not doesn't matter. She's barely in the rest of the game, and if you do save her, the only scene you see her in is in the hospital. So what's the point in this choice if she's barely important to the plot overall? Or she's barely in the rest of the game? There's then a scene with the principal where you can get David, Jefferson, or Nate suspended, and I'm gonna let you guess how this affects the plot. That's right, it doesn't affect the plot in any way. I would say my main problem with episode 2 is that it's filler, and it's the worst kind of filler. No, this isn't Breaking Bad filler where they actually still make it interesting while watching, and still moves along the plot, but filler where literally nothing happens and you can skip this episode and gain nothing from it except, hey, Chloe knows you can time travel. If that's the bare essential information I need to know from this episode, then you've done a terrible job at writing this episode. The only thing that's happened in the past 2 episodes is Max gets powers, Max and Chloe reunite together. Other than that, there's been no plot development nor character development in this game. Episode 3 actually gets the plot going again. Oh, did I say it would start going immediately? No, what do you expect, a good game? No, it starts almost halfway through the fucking episode. Ugh. If you are now going to establish the plot, then there's no need for the first half of this episode to exist. In fact, there's no reason for the past 2.5 episodes to exist at all. It would have had enough time to establish it all in this episode, but reality is often disappointing. I'm going to compliment this part of the game, and by compliment I mean give it the most backhanded compliment of all time. They at least got started instead of wasting your time with inspecting useless shit, getting dressed, padding, etc. Max then uses her phone light to navigate in the dark, which is dumb because that drains your battery fast, especially for being set in 2013. Your battery is going to be dead in no time, but whatever. I also love how the characters barely animate when talking to one another. They just stand still while talking. Wow, I love this game so much. This is seriously one of the best pieces of media of all time for you dickwads. Blonde bitch tries flirting with Mr. Jefferson, which actually goes somewhere in the story, and actually has an important part in the story, so wow, Life is Strange, you just had meaningful dialogue in this game. However, these minor backhanded compliments I'm giving this episode doesn't last for long, since now it's time for more convoluted dumb shit. Max and Chloe then break into the school for more information on what might have happened to Rachel. For some reason, Chloe and Max can't get this one door open, so Chloe tries to lockpick the door while Max has the idiotic idea of making a fucking pipe bomb, which leads you to doing this convoluted task of finding all the ingredients around the school to make one. Okay, but why wouldn't you just kick the door in or smash the door with something heavy? It could have been way more efficient and less time consuming. Alright, sorry, I forgot that I was supposed to put a bullet in my brain to enjoy this shit. We then find out that Nate was responsible for getting Rachel kicked off campus, but it's never brought up again, like most things are in this game. We're then given another choice that doesn't matter, where we can take money for handicapped people to pay off Frank, or we don't. Again, this has no consequence at all in the story, so it doesn't matter. The only thing you will find out is whether or not you're a piece of shit. They also find out that David is responsible for some important plot stuff, so the reasonable thing would be to go to Chloe's house and investigate, right? Right? Nope, we get a scene where Chloe and Max take a swim together with cringy dialogue, and some boring dialogue that doesn't develop the characters in any way. Also, I love how manipulative the music tries to be into tricking you that a scene is emotional or heartwarming. Haha, fuck you game, I actually have no soul, so take that. Then all of a sudden a security guard comes out of nowhere to check on the pool for some reason. Why does this happen? Because we can't find any way to make drama organically, so we're just gonna make it as forced as possible. The stealth scene is also fucking boring too. Damn, it's like this game wants me to hate it. We then get dared by Chloe to kiss her, but hell nah man, miss me with that gay shit. Max then changes clothes because the chlorine was on her clothes. Max, guess you didn't shower, which means the chlorine is still on your skin. Jesus Christ, we have a fucking smooth brain for a protagonist. By the way, you wanna know something funny? We're halfway through the fucking episode. God, I don't get paid enough for this. The plot is now finally progressing. Oh, wait, no, it's not. We have to get some breakfast from Joyce. This again is my main complaints with the game. It's more padded than an A cup on school picture day, and it takes forever for the plot to get going. And once the plot does get going, it's terribly written garbage. Also, what's funny is when you eat the meal and rewind time, Joyce will serve you the food with only 25% of the food on it, and Joyce somehow never notices. We then snoop on David's laptop, where we have to guess the password, which doesn't take any looking around. You just have to guess which one is the right one. Ooh, thank you for padding this. Life is strange. Once you return, you can either expose him or not. Once again, whether or not you choose to expose him has no real impact on the plot itself. We then go to the diner to get Frank's keys and go to the RV. No, not that one. Frank's one. To get in, but a dog is guarding it, so you can either choose to kill the poor cunt or distract him. Either way, there's no real impact on that choice, except to prove if you're a sadistic, inhumane psychopath or not. Max then comments on how the dog can come back, and so what if it does? You're in the RV, and if it causes problems, just fucking rewind, idiot. They then find out that Frank was having sex with Rachel, and understandably, Chloe storms out the RV. And more boring fucking dialogue ensues in the car. Max returns back to her dorm, and super plot contrivance number 2 happens, where Max can now go back in time just by looking at a fucking photograph. Again, it was never established that Max could do this, just like with the stopping time shit, so what do we call this, ladies and gentlemen? That's right, dog shit fucking writing. Before they were actually breaking their own rules they made, but now they're just pulling shit out of their ass. For some reason this never happened before when she looked at photographs previously in the game, but now she can? Excuse me, I need a gun to shoot myself with. So now we're in the future where we try to stop Chloe's dad from dying, which is done by hiding the keys? Why, all you have to do is delay it for a few seconds, not a few fucking years. Also, it sounds uncanny that Max sounds the exact same at 13 and 18. Like, she doesn't sound different at all.
Yeah, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, Max, retrace every step.
Basically, all it does is warp the timeline into turning Max into a popular bitch, David into a bus driver, and the biggest difference of them all, Chloe being in a wheelchair. So yeah, overall shit episode. Only compliment I can give is something happened to move the plot forward. Episode 4 starts by bringing Max on a walk with Chloe down a beach, talking. Nothing important here, just cringy dialogue. How am I supposed to empathize with these characters if all the interactions are going to be boring, uninteresting, or cringy? So then, after finding out that Chloe's parents are in debt, Max spends the whole night watching Blade Runner with Chloe. And then morning comes and Chloe asks Max to kill her, which is the most selfish and dickish thing I've ever seen. Like, hey Max, I'm in extreme pain, but can you kill me so I won't be in pain? But you will be in pain, and also rotting in jail cell. Not only that, but I'm telling you this after we've gone back together after years of not seeing each other for a while. Don't worry though, the death doesn't matter because Max immediately rewinds time and causes Chloe's father to die instead. Another problem with this game is that the main character has like a million different options to try in order to make things better, but she always manages to pick the dumbest one. Also, what's the fucking point of this alternate timeline section if everything goes back the way it was anyway? The plot, characters, or anything was never dragged forward, so the game fucks with me again. You could make the argument that messing with the past doesn't make the future better, despite one of the endings contradicting that criticism. So again, that's hours of content that we could have cut and nothing would have changed. We then try to break into Nathan's dorm to find clues on what's been happening around here. It's been the past hour, and finally the story has decided to progress. Max then uses a fire extinguisher to break into Nathan's dorm, and oh, Did these writers realize that they made the pipe bomb scene from the episode 3 even more stupid and contrived? Also, Nathan hides his phone behind the couch with sellotape. Fine, whatever, I don't even care anymore. Nathan then gets the shit kicked out of by Warren, and Nathan picks up his gun and doesn't shoot them, even though he was just about to do so before, but okay, thank you for the inconsistent writing game. Anyway, the only thing I can compliment about episode 4 is Frank and his dog. The choices actually matter in that scene. It has been 4 fucking episodes, and just now do we have a choice that actually fucking matters. Once we get back, we have this huge monotonous puzzle to solve. Puzzles in games should be 1. Rewarding when you solve it, 2. Tough but fair, and 3. Not unbelievably frustrating to the point you want to quit. This puzzle fails all of these. It is not rewarding when I solved it. In fact, it pissed me off when I did. It's not exactly tough but fair, since it wasn't tough, it was just monotonous. And it was unbelievably frustrating to the point I wanted to quit. Although the puzzle wasn't the contribution for me wanting to do that already. The clues then lead them to a barn where all they do is make stupid pop culture references that's only served to waste your time. They then find a hatch and find this bunker where all the photographs have been taken, which by the way has to be one of the lamest things ever. You drug a woman and just take photos of them. Why? Couldn't you just ask them to get their photos taken while being tied up? Who is this lame-ass villain who's doing this shit? Anyway, they find out that Rachel was near the junkyard, so they dig up the location to see that, surprise, surprise, Rachel is actually dead. Geez, what a twist, never saw that one coming. This whole plotline was boring filler in order to get to the point, and when the game does get to the point, it turns out to be the first answer you think of. So why the fuck jerk us around like that if you're just going to go the boring and predictable route? They then head to the Vortex Club and take a picture with Warren, which is useful for the next episode. And we then go inside the club and look what we find. A bunch of people underage drinking. Guys, you realize that the legal age limit in America is 21. And the university is letting this happen. Sure. Max then fucks around the club talking to people, and then finds the VIP list. Now in episode 3 there's a choice where you can write down your name on it, but it doesn't really seem to matter because either way you're not getting in. We finally meet Victoria after some dumb filler, and we finally have the choice to either warn her or not, which if you choose the latter is completely contradictory to why you came here in the first place. So you were just wasting your time. We then get a text from Nathan saying that he's disposing of the evidence, so they rush over there, and what happens? Well, it turns out it wasn't Nathan, but the creepy photographer teacher the whole time. Man, who would have thought? It's not like that was my first immediate guess when I was playing this game for the first time, but whatever. So next episode begins with Max duct taped to a chair with Victoria beside us, so it doesn't even matter whether we warned her or not. The choice didn't matter. Also, Max, why are you screaming for help? Normally this is sound logic, but you already know this is a barn in the middle of nowhere, so no one will hear you but the killer, who will probably just knock you out again. Anyway, Max is stuck to the chair with duct tape, so obviously it's gonna be super hard to get off, and oh my fucking god. Why stop with one leg? Why not try the other limbs, dumbass? If that doesn't work, you can always stand up and jump backwards, breaking the chair, which will help set you free. So anyway, Mr. Jefferson turns into a crazy generic villain and starts monologuing to you, which is incredibly stupid, and I shouldn't have to explain why monologuing your plan is dumb and idiotic. So then Max uses her photo to go back in time for the first episode, and warns David about the dark room. Then she wins the Everyday Heroes contest and travels forward in time to travel to San Francisco, where her photo is hung up, and then she blacks out and has crazy visions. She then gets a call from Chloe, who dies on call, because the storm is back. She then rips the photo apart while time itself is ripping itself apart, which doesn't make any sense because Max can't go back in time to destroy the photo because the photo was already destroyed, meaning that future Max can't use the photo to go back in time. I'm sorry, I think I just lost a few billion brain cells just by reading that. So anyway, Max ends up back in the dark room somehow, where she's now in a future where she tipped off David. So now we have to rewind time over and over again in order for David to beat the teacher. How does a teacher beat some military guy in the army with combat training? Beats fucking me. You then can either tell David that Chloe is dead or not. Again, this choice doesn't really matter because we're going back in time anyway, so telling him now wouldn't matter, except for if you want to be a giant dick. Then we get a message from Nathan where the game tries to convince you that deep down Nathan wasn't actually a cunt, and was just a poor, misunderstood soul. And to that I say, fuck you. Nathan never did anything good throughout the episodes, so this just comes across as forced and inconsistent character writing. Victoria is an example of a character who can be good at times, and when she is, it's a sign of character development and growth. But this is just the developers trying to manipulate the player into thinking that he's just a misunderstood fuckhead. You get to the diner where you can interact with shit that doesn't matter, and then you can choose to hug, kiss, or do nothing and leave with Warren. Which I don't give a shit because Max and Warren's relationship was never developed enough in the first place to warrant this kind of action. We then make it to Chloe and warn her about the shit that's been going on. We then flash forward a few days later to the storm, but before we get to the end game, we have a blackout, which is with this weird 30-minute dream sequence that is just straight up filler and has no right to be there. One cool thing that comes from it though is in the bathroom scene, if you input the code incorrectly 50 times, she breaks the fourth rule and outright blames the developers, which I found to be the first thing in this game I genuinely found cool. And it's in the last 30 to 40 minutes of the game. Now buckle up kids, because I'm not done. It's time we talk about the worst part of the game, that being the ending, which comes down to sacrifice Chloe or Arcadia Bay. Let's talk about both endings, I guess. First off, if we choose to save Arcadia Bay, Chloe dies because Chloe is the one who is basically tied to this mess, but how? How is she tied to this mess in the first place? And also, how did they manage to come to that conclusion where they need to sacrifice Chloe in order to save Arcadia Bay? Like, how did they know that? And finally, that means that this whole game was pointless and never should have happened. Which means every choice you ever made never happened. So yeah, that whole shit about choices mattering was a lie. But if you choose the second ending, Max rips the photo and watches Arcadia Bay die with Chloe. Which also means that the whole game was also pointless, because every choice you made with every character apart from Chloe doesn't matter because they're dead. And the character growth you had with them doesn't fucking matter since they're dead. This makes Max and Chloe look more fucking sadistic and psychopathic than Jefferson or Nathan, which is hilarious me thinking about it. Also, this ending has a happy song at the end, but there's one small problem to the song, and that's everyone fucking died. Why is this portrayed as happy, dumb cunts? The ending is just a complete slap in the face to anyone who trudged through this shit and found out that nothing really mattered at the end. You can make this game worthless by resetting the timeline, so every choice you ever made was pointless, or you can kill everyone except you and Chloe, which also makes every choice you ever made with the characters pointless. So both endings were entirely pointless, and are slaps across the faces to the players. You know, I was originally nice to this game when I played it a second time a few years ago, but after playing this game 2 more times, I can now see why this game was the worst one in the series, or maybe even just as bad as Before the Storm. Overall, The First Life is Strange gets a fucking 1 out of 10. This game, just like the others, is probably some of the worst games I've ever played, and that's saying a lot coming from me. Now, before we move on to Before the Storm, I'm going to take a few minutes to rant about Chloe, okay? Cool. At the junkyard, Chloe guilt trips Max into doing more dumb shit when she sees Max black out only a few minutes ago, and turns out Chloe did actually take David's gun. This makes her not only careless, but David was actually right about her. Go figure. She's so stupid that she can't take her own shoe on the tracks, and she's also unreliable for owing her dealer money. This makes her seem needy and pathetic. She also whines to Max about how she didn't contact her all this time. Well, okay, why didn't you contact her then? Also, Max, if Chloe is only hanging out with you in the first place because you have the one thing that brings her entertainment, then you are not friends. She's just using you for her own enjoyment. So episode 3 comes along and Chloe is mad at David because she set up some security cameras and more to find out what happened to Rachel. I admit it's a bit much, but it's a bit hypocritical for Chloe to say that because we are literally doing practically the same thing. If you side with David, she gets so pissed that you didn't side with her, which is so unbelievably toxic, but whatever. At least David is actually looking for your best friend Rachel. Oh, and what are you doing, Chloe, in the meantime? Breaking into schools, stealing handicap funds for drug dealers you owe, who was last seen with Rachel, I might add. However, if you have morals and stop Chloe from taking it, she seems bummed out that she can't take charity money that was for handicapped people who need it more than her, to be supported or to be able to walk again. You only need it for drugs, you selfish waste of a garbage human being. Chloe even assumes that we are talking about her when we aren't at a dinner table, which means that she loves being the center of attention. She also accuses you of bailing on her when she was 16 when you saved her life twice, this ungrateful little prick. We then break into Frank's RV where Chloe gets rightfully mad when she finds out her friend was fucking Frank, so she takes out all her anger on Max. Max then tells Chloe that she can't keep going with this toxic behavior, and Chloe then says, and I quote, "Gotta blame somebody, otherwise it's all my fault." I could keep going about how shitty Chloe is, but I feel like this line sums up the whole experience I had with her. Okay, so if you didn't think Chloe wasn't already an insufferable piece of garbage, we now get to play as her, where she does shit that is 10 times worse in this game. We call a guy a dick because we have to pay $20 for a shirt. We then steal $200 worth of probably the band's money, and we also steal a shirt. Not only that, but we ruin his car by driving it off the edge, probably damaging it a ton. But no, this is the character we should empathize with. We then use the money to buy drugs, and once we get back from the party, we snoop around our mom's house, and we judge her a lot. Like everything that you inspect is from Chloe's point of view, so you get to hear her being judgy and angsty, which, while I do hate Max as a protagonist from the first game, I at least didn't want to kill myself while playing as her. My only problem with Max when inspecting shit is that she can be quite a dumbass. But this is too much to handle. Like this is all there is to her character. Don't judge me while I judge other people. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Also, you look fucking stupid. Don't judge me. God, it's so fucking insufferable. Another problem is that this is a prequel. There's no tension in the death or characters since we already know of what's to come. The only thing you can do is explore their backstory, which an excellent example of that is Better Call Saul. Saul Goodman never needed a backstory, but this show explores it masterfully, that it actually made me like it more than Breaking Bad. Maybe we could do what Saul Goodman does in Better Call Saul, from innocence to sleazebag, except when the game starts, Chloe is already a rebel punk, so that idea is thrown out the window. So then this game is meant to explore Chloe's and Rachel's relationship with each other before the storm. Haha, I see what I did there. Cool, anyway, then we meet David for the first time, and this game should explore why Chloe hates David so much. But she already hates him from the start. Not only that, but David is actually being pretty patient with Chloe over here. So instead of getting the audience to hate David, we instead hate Chloe. The backtalk mechanic is dumb and stupid. No one talks like that in real life, and for some reason when you beat them, they just enter this calm state and let you do what you want. Like, what the fuck? No one would react like that in real life. Also, I thought the dialogue when talking back to people was supposed to have some sort of edge to it. Not like this.
I don't sleep. It's for the weak.
Also, the backtalk mechanic provides the least amount of info for the characters. If you didn't backtalk them, then you'd actually get more information that's useful, or develops the characters, albeit extremely tiny development, like trying to get $1 million with pennies kind of development, but still development nonetheless. Okay, now we get to see Rachel for the first time in gameplay, and Rachel is being described as this perfect girl. Everyone loves her, she's perfect at everything, and she's a great actor. Now that we've established that, the logical decision would be to get a great actor with lots of range and lots of talent to it. However, they do the exact opposite. Kylie Brown, who plays Amber, just lacks any charm to her, and her voice sounds completely unnatural when she speaks. And the voice actor for Chloe isn't doing a very good job. Ashley Birch this time isn't voicing Chloe, but is writing her. I'm not saying Ashley was great at voicing Chloe, but she is leagues better than this clown. And what happens when you put the two together? Bad fucking dialogue and presentation. Which also means there'll be no chemistry in their relationship. Rachel then decides to skip school with Chloe because she's such a delinquent, edgy person, and that's what the cool kids do. And that's where we learn two things about Amber. The first is that Rachel wants to leave Arcadia Bay, which is something we already knew from the first game, and the second is that she can read anyone from playing a game of Two Truths, One Lie. So then the duo play a game of improv since Amber is a theater kid, which from my experience, theater kids are the most obnoxious cunts around. But anyway, they basically imitate people and what they're thinking, which is an awful exercise to bond with our main protagonist, since it makes them seem like such obnoxious cunts. Rachel then spots a couple kissing, and she gets pissed off. Surprise, surprise, that was her dad having an affair. Which is probably the most basic plotline you can think of. Rachel then steals a wine bottle with the help of Chloe, although it's done where it's made to look like every other character that isn't Rachel or Chloe is super dumb. How am I supposed to believe they're smart when every other character is just stupid? Something seems to be pissing off Rachel when they arrive at the junkyard, and it doesn't matter what choices you make because she'll still be pissed at you. So when she leaves the junkyard, Chloe smashes everything that resembles her life. Like, subtlety is never a thing in this game. They then meet up later and discuss what shitty parents they have, and in anger, Rachel starts a forest fire, which, again, is not very subtly hinted throughout the first episode. So instead of focusing on internal conflict that you could get more information from Life is Strange 1, we are instead given this random-ass conflict that doesn't matter, which is the focus on Rachel's dad. So instead of using Mr. Jefferson as conflict, we instead use this character who's barely been mentioned throughout the episode, and we don't know anything about. There's literally no substantial conflict, which means if there's none of that, their conclusion as friends is going to be left as hollow and unsatisfying, but whatever. The conflict they had originally was solved faster than their friendship began. Which brings me to the next problem, which is the amount of episodes there are. There's only 3 instead of the regular 5, and there has been barely any character development. And we're supposed to have a good payoff at the end of the game, even though 1/3 of the game has passed, and I feel nothing but hatred and just think of them as despicable people at the end. So anyway, episode 2 starts off with Principal Wells being like, hey, your absence is bad, who's responsible? And depending on Rachel, she can take the blame and get kicked out of school play, or you get blamed so you get expelled, which by the way, if you get blamed, is just a dick move on Rachel's part and proves to you immediately that she's a cunt. But what are the effects of these choices? Do they affect the story? Well, no, not really. There's then a dream scene where Chloe's dad warns Chloe about Rachel, and this doesn't matter, it never really comes back to play in the story, and Chloe sticks by Rachel no matter what, so that was worthless. Anyway, Rachel then drugs Victoria. Hold up. Pause. Let's give you guys some context. So, on the night of the play that is Shakespeare's The Tempest, one of 2 outcomes occur. If Rachel isn't kicked out of the play, she drugs Victoria to get the lead role. And if Rachel was kicked out of the play, Chloe attempts to smack talk her in order for Rachel to get the role. Fail to succeed the smack talk, and Rachel drugs Victoria anyway. But hold up, I thought Victoria was meant to be the antagonist, but all she's done so far is be a bit of a cunt. Which, okay, granted, a bit shitty, but she hasn't done anything awful. But Rachel, the good guy, decides to drug Victoria in order to get a bigger role in the play. Do you guys now realize how maniacal it sounds for Rachel to be doing this, and how idiotic it is to side with her? But whatever. My main point is that, why the fuck does Chloe not question the morality of what Rachel is doing? You literally just did the flashback, now it's time to bring it full circle. And nope, we're just not going to question it. Oh. Okay. It's really fucking hard to empathize with the main characters and take the plot seriously if you drug a character and the game is like, she was mean anyway. Do you guys realize how hypocritical it is for Mr. Jefferson to be the villain who spikes people? But when Rachel does it, it's like, who cares, she's the main protagonist. And now that Victoria's been drugged, the drama teacher, who's been known to be a bit pretentious, just hires Chloe as Victoria's role instead of, shutting down the play and acting as a consequence for Rachel's behavior. But it's instead shrugged off by the teacher and it's like, yeah, fucking Chloe can do it. Why are you trying to be comical when your game has a history of drugging people? This is not the time, you tone-deaf moronic writers. Also, no matter how badly you do in the play, it still gets positive reviews, which, wow, choice not being a thing and more or less a concept in this game? Wow, that's a surprise to me. And do you think that's the worst? No, you poor naive viewer, it gets worse. So anyway, after that, Rachel then asks Chloe if she wants to leave tonight, which, can I just say, that's all of Rachel's personality and goals. She just wants to leave Arcadia Bay, and it's never explored why, except her parents are dicks. So they both agree and decide to get some things at Rachel's house for the trip. But uh-oh, Rachel's parents notice them and ask them to join for dinner, which we accept, which leads to a tense scene where either you can confront the dad or Rachel can. Regardless of what happens, a fight breaks out, and turns out the affair was the most predictable thing to come out of it. Like, uh-oh, it wasn't a mistress, and actually Rachel's actual birth mother. And it turns out that Sarah was a heroin addict that wanted an escape from life. Why? Well, it's never explained, but whatever. The reason why Sarah could never see Rachel is because of self-destructive behavior and drug abuse. Chloe and Rachel try to argue that she's changed, while the father argues otherwise, and to be honest, I can completely understand where James is coming from. I wouldn't want some heroin addict with a self-destructive personality interacting with my daughter. Anyway, episode 3 begins, and Rachel talks about stars and how beautiful they are, but how they blind us from lies, because the stars are already dead, which is just not true and stupid. She then says that everything she's ever been told her whole life is a lie, which is extremely pessimistic. Your dad's love wasn't a lie, and neither was your stepmom's love. All because she wasn't blood-related? Fine, your trust is broken, but they still love you. But you'd still rather pick your mother who's been picking heroin over you for the past 15 years instead of your parents. Anyway, Rachel now wants to meet with Sarah and calls Frank and tells him to meet her at the junkyard without any specifications on why. Also, there's this dumb fucking B story where Chloe gets caught up in a brother's squabble about money. How this is related to Chloe is beyond me. Anyway, long story short, Rachel gets stabbed and is fucking perseverant on still finding her mother. So she sends Chloe over to her dad's office, and this whole office section is just filler to prove that this is a game that you're playing and not a fucking movie. So anyway, let's step back a bit and remind you of this tool, Elliot, who basically obsesses over Chloe, and since Chloe left the door open to James's house, for some reason, because Chloe is a fucking moron, Elliot just strolls on in and is like, hey, Rachel is just using you. But instead of using this as a way to express his worry about her, he instead uses it as an expression for why she doesn't love him. Oh, Jesus Christ, game, you were so close to doing something right. So either way, you can get Elliot arrested or kicked out, which doesn't matter at all in the story whatsoever, so it doesn't matter. And Chloe goes back to the hospital and argues with Rachel, saying it's too much and she can't handle it all. But all it takes for Chloe to come back to Rachel is, hey, Chloe, aren't we best friends forever? And boom, Chloe's just back, she's convinced again. So then this leads Chloe to question that William might not be as perfect as she thought, and instead of talking to her mom if her dad had any faults, she just makes up her own conclusion? Also, why not question Rachel's behavior too? You think she's a perfect snowflake as well, so instead of questioning your dad, question Rachel's intentions. So anyway, Chloe gets a message from James's phone saying that they're gonna kill Sarah if they don't give this guy money, so Chloe rushes to the rescue and gets knocked out. Hooray. Sarah and Chloe have a conversation, and two things. One, why doesn't Sarah's voice sound fucked or looked fucked from all the heroin she's been doing? And two, Sarah tells Chloe that she doesn't want to see Rachel because she needs her loving family and not Sarah. Sarah tells Chloe not to tell Rachel about any of this, and it's up to you whether or not you should keep it a secret. But isn't Rachel good at reading people, and isn't she supposed to be super, super smart? It doesn't matter if you tell her or don't, she's definitely gonna figure it out sooner or later. So anyway, cue happy ending montage and then post-credit sequence. And that's about all there is to this game. Nothing but a waste of fucking time that doesn't add anything and has no right to be there. Rachel was supposed to be this compelling villain who had the whole world wrapped around her finger, but instead is an uninteresting popular girl archetype. In conclusion, Life is Strange is a game franchise that had a lot of potential with its premise, but unfortunately didn't get the proper talent it deserved, and instead got replaced with hack writers and directors who then went on to produce and direct these garbage games. Now, I'm just gonna say it now, even though I'm pretty sure all the Life is Strange fans left. that it's okay to like these games, as long as you acknowledge the fact that these games are indeed bad. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of these games. I put a lot of effort into them, and if you're interested in more videos like this, then be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Later.